Thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day, and we'll do the same without wasting a single second of your time. Bada bing, bada boom, we go to the downside. Slight retrace for BTC out the point of control as this rolls down the mountain. We are starting to come to the wick at 50,603. This is also below a node over here from December 2021. If we fall back beneath this, we are coming down to that 49.4 region and see what liquidity waits for us. We have some wick of a test of support from this wick at 49k. Do we come down into this range here at that 48k level? That is the question, as we breached this 886 of this diagonal pitch fan we had priced in for over a year. Let's go take a look at the liquidity. What is the liquidity? Well, people lock that liquidity into the charts to get burned to a crisp by the market maker for not using a stop loss. We can see what those crispy characters are, so let's do it now. So as you see here, it came down into the hotter heat signature down here at 50,005, 308 million down here at that 50,005 mark. They tapped it. There's still some more down there at that 50,000 even mark on the higher time frame. We'll check that out in a minute, but first let's go look at the last 24 hours. In the last 24 hours, 17 million in longs and 7 million in shorts was taken on BTC, 15 million in longs on ETH, and 8 million in shorts for ETH, and a lot of other longs as people left their longs open on their alts. You gotta always pay yourself or you get gobbled up.
Fatality.
And also in the last 4 hours, they're retracing back into some of the shorts. Uni, most notably here, Uni got a 339k short squeezed on Uni, and that is where we stand. Let's go back to the heat map real quick and look at the higher time frame. So that higher time frame yesterday is what we were looking at, which is why we were saying possibly coming down to that 50k range. You got a couple billion down here creating dead weight that needs to be flushed. So that is why our analysis here was, what do you know, coming down to that 49.4-ish region. Still have yet to do that, and we are also seeing some rejection off of the cloud, potential cloud kiss idea to come to the downside. Did start to bleed out slowly. It was one of those slow descending channel bleeds, and you could look at this as a kind of rounded top with this idea here. We are, something to be aware of is we are building up some shorts while we are not dropping, so they could do one last squeeze on the shorts. We'll see what the liquidity looks like for that as we go into here. Okay, so you do have some large amount up at that 51.5 region to come up to, but that's a $1,500 increase, whereas they could come a little bit lower if you go to the weekly. There's still some to be taken, 386 million down at 50,000 even. So that coincides with the higher time frame we were looking at to come down and grab these longer leveraged people, stop them out, reach an order block area down in here, and generate some more long interest. Depending on the interest that's generated, they may continue to flush down to a level where there's less retail with less leverage. So be aware that it's not the end-all be-all down in that 49.4 region, but that is the draw currently as we have broken these wicks and are starting to eat into this candle over here to the left. Let's go ahead and turn on our oscillators. We have limited time. I'm watching the kids today and gotta work, so I will do this short but sweet as we turn on our oscillators. Link in the description for more. As you go to momentummaster.info, scroll down to features, toggle at your leisure, and see in its glory at Bitcoin's bottom before we knew it was a bottom. And the stochastic array told us so with the rocket ships. And we had the trend cloud, the baselines, the dynamic alerts to our phone to keep us plugged in at every step of the journey. So the thing that we were talking about yesterday was the 3-day close. So the 3-day closed in a bearish state with a key level of a pivot zone as well. So are we starting to see this failure of the baseline and potential comeback down on the 3-day time frame? The weekly closes in 2 days time, so we'll see how the weekly candle closes as well in 2 days. If we come to the daily, this is the thing we were looking at. Here we have the super trend 6.2% away at 47.7, and this was what we were looking at here, this cross down event of the baselines. What are the baselines? Well, you can look at them here. Your first sign of reversal. So this was giving us that cross potential as we were leading into this idea and seeing this failure into the level we're currently at. So these cross up and cross down events, we had the cross up here on January 27th before we took off. So is this going to take us down? That is the question on the daily time frame, as the stochastic resets and the alarm cross for the Williams is in effect for potential suppression on the daily time frame. So watch out for that as we come into oversold on stochastic. If you're not looking at other momentum indicators, you may be duped to buy here. 22-hour time frame, 2.6% away from the super trend in the cloud, coming down to that 49.4 confluence, lines up ever so nicely with these levels. So this region becomes even more of a potential draw as the confluences line up. Money flow, the stochastic getting suppressed by the Williams. This is what may happen on the daily. You're front running it on the 22 and coming lower to the 12-hour. The 12-hour time frame, the 12-hour cloud still pointing to 2 o'clock, but starting to slightly change its angle here. If you just turn this like so, it's slowly starting to curve. Do we come down to this cloud? This confluence also lines up with that 49K region. Do we come down into this level or not on the 12-hour time frame? 12-hour cloud is, baseline, and the money flow is beneath the RSI, so suggestive of an eventual pull up to that. We talked about how when the money flow goes beneath the RSI, that disparity generally brings the money flow up to it, but in times of reversal and fatigue, the RSI gets drawn down to the money flow. So it seems like the RSI is getting drawn down in this case, and as the Williams resets on the 12-hour. Does that continue from this point? We are on a low liquidity weekend. We could see some stops triggered and a sell-off inbound. There's examples I could go. Let's do that now. Let's give you an example of weekend dumps where stop losses were triggered and it sold off throughout that time. Here's one right here. So we had one over the 2021 dip here, and I remember this very clearly because I was shopping at the time. And then I had some group asking me about levels, and I was looking at, what was this? Yeah, we came down here and then up to here. And I was saying we could come down to this level here at, wait, was this that? Or was I going down in here? Don't remember exactly, but I think it was inside of here and we never made it above this level. So this was your retrace, impulse retrace idea, and we were looking at some levels here. Okay, so as we started to break this 236, I was getting bearish back in December 4th of 2021. Somebody asked me, where do you think we're going? And then we were hanging out in this 706 at 48K, and I was like, we can go all the way down to 43, whatever. And then it burst down in 10 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. So there's stops that could be triggered. Granted, we were in a bearish overtone for that thing, but what I mean is there is volatility that can be had on the weekend. And we did another one with the Tesla SpaceX sell-off in August of last year. So coming to the 4-hour, let's go ahead and see what the 4-hour holds in terms of momentum. The thing we were looking at on the 6th, we skipped the 6th. The 6-hour also had this cloud shift idea. We were looking at it over here, seeing that this cloud was starting to shift, and that if you got a bearish retest, that it would be a nice ideal area at that point of control to short. and you had this curvature of the 6 insinuating downside in advance. This is why the momentum of the trend cloud is a good thing to look at for your key ideas of reversal and entry. And also looking at the 4-hour, so the oscillator on that, you have this suppression by the Williams as the Williams resets on the stochastic. Looking at the 4-hour, also getting suppressed by the Williams reset, getting into a oversold region on the Williams. Does it continue lower? Currently you're holding the 4-hour super trend. If you break this, then you're coming down into these regions. Currently looks like they could retrace into some of the liquidity. 51.5 is one of those levels, so $500 pop, but not as interesting as what lurks below on the weekly, and still not so much. You have to go all the way up to that level 51.5 to grab this. There is more up here, 437 as opposed to 300 on the daily time frame. Let's go ahead and drop lower to the hourly. This hourly cloud didn't do that justice. We were talking about possibly coming up to bearishly retest and come down. That was prior, that was the entry prior to my live stream yesterday, but the idea was sound for the downside event. So do we continue here on the hourly time frame? Cloud above the baselines, above price action, suggestive of continuation as we meander our way on down. All right, so making a call, do we come back in the Asian range and come back and retrace into some of this short liquidity, ever so slight, coming to that 41.5 line in the sand here? There is a large amount up in this region here. Do they come back to this level before going lower? We're on the slow bleed going down. If you just take a look at this with the regression trend, we're just slowly holding this channel. So if we come up to the top of the channel, do we come back down is the question. They're not making it easy for either side. They can take their time because the longs that are open are paying fees. So the funding fee is for the longs to remain open, so they can just slow bleed the longs with time on their side. So there's no reason to go back to them just yet. Make them bleed their profits away and close in fear. We're holding the super trend here, or not the super trend, the adaptive moving average. You can also read about that here. Sensitive yet stable formula. And does it hold this adaptive, or do we break below? Breaking below this on the hourly time frame would be a sign of weakness, as we held this all the way since 42K. So interesting to note that for that hourly adaptive moving average. Let's go ahead and erase this. We already went over what that meant with the cross down of the daily. Still looking to see lower prices. I've been saying it for days. I'd like to see it just flush out all of these longs, just purge them, and let's go to an order block. Somewhere down in here would be your ultimate confluence zone at that 46K region for the golden pocket idea. If you're eager, you might see some bounce off the 49K, but ultimately down in that 46K would be a good zone. Looking at the total market cap of crypto, it's starting to get a little bit of slight pullback, but not really. It's just going range bound as the alts, people trade in the alts. Getting a pullback to the 706. If Bitcoin does fall, then everything will get a slight pullback here. Looking at the Bitcoin, the USDT dominance coming back above the cloud here. Cloud was curving here, so this is suggestive as we reclaim this cloud, and we were getting this level coming up here. The more we come up into this region, the more we knock out people into USDT. So that is something to look out for. We did get a rejection off the cloud before the cloud. We didn't even make it to the super trend and came lower on Bitcoin dominance as the alts still trade. Do we come lower? This cloud pressure to the downside for the Bitcoin dominance as the alts still play ball, most notably Ethereum. All right, and yesterday we were looking at NQ, trading with a few of the members in the Discord, and we saw this London bounce in the pre-market. It wicked down to here. We had this in advance. You're like, how did you have 17.99 in advance? Well, we did. We were talking about here. We were like, does it come down to this level before it bounces? And then it did. Said, do we get a solid flush of 18K before the send-off? And then boom, we got to that 17.999, exactly pixel perfect of that level, and then it started to bounce up. Boom. And that was a nice little pre-market pump in London session that we were looking at. And then we were seeing this nukes appear on our oscillators. If you were so keen as to short into that, they did flush the lows and more. All right, so that was NASDAQ. How does Dixie hold? Dixie slowly giving a rise off of this this equilibrium level. Do we come up into this gap? Is the dollar going to reclaim some of its power next week? Let's go ahead and look at the 12-hour for that. You wicked off of the equilibrium level, the even Steven level of this impulse. Do we start to then make a draw up into this wick and then some? Something to look out for going into next week. If there is a bullish narrative for the dollar. Still unclear what news we have inbound next week. We'll figure it out tomorrow. But this is low liquidity Saturday. Would not be surprised if in London session they come up to take some liquidity up here before heading on lower. Once again, this is the line in the sand. 51.5 is where the liquidity dries up here, and so they would, if they go to stop out this and stay in this ascending or descending channel rather, then this would be the top of the range to watch out for. The point of control and the cloud on the 4 and the 6 being your resistance ideas. But ultimately looking for lower prices for BTC, still in the same idea as we go on drift to the downside. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, folks. So thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment, of which we all share inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in, and we'll do the same and bringing the fire to action.